I'm a 37-year-old man, and I've been married to Claire, a 32-year-old woman, for 2.5 years. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when everything started to go downhill, but I think things really began to shift after one phone call that threw everything off course. I was sitting in the living room, catching up on football highlights from the day before when my wife's phone rang. The constant buzzing was starting to annoy me, especially since it interrupted the commentary, so I grabbed the phone and walked it to the kitchen. I handed it to her and asked her to take the call. It rang again, and this time, Claire seemed ready to answer it. Both of us worked in corporate jobs, and Claire had this rule about not letting work interfere with our personal life. She was adamant about separating the two. I respected that, and she expected the same from me. She valued her privacy and encouraged me to do the same. She never took work calls on weekends, preferring to handle anything urgent by email. I walked toward the kitchen exit, half expecting her to snap or get upset, but instead, she went silent. Her face changed. It wasn't until dinner that she finally told me what the call was about. They were transferring us out of state. I could tell something was off immediately when I asked her where. As soon as I said the words, I understood. This was about the company's expansion. The board was moving employees around to oversee new branch developments. I knew how transfers worked, but they usually didn't transfer married people without discussing it first. Claire hadn't asked for the transfer. I suggested she turn it down, but she quickly explained that it came with a promotion, the promotion she'd been working toward for her entire career. She'd worked hard for it, and it was finally within reach. That's when it hit me. Claire was an ambitious woman. I'd always admired that about her. For the past year, she'd been putting in extra hours, volunteering for tough assignments, and ensuring her team of 7 was running smoothly. Now, all that hard work was about to pay off, but not in the way I had expected. Her salary would double, with plenty of Daniele fits and perks. But the money was never the main thing for her. Claire was determined to climb the corporate ladder, and I could see that now more than ever. "What do you think I should do?" she asked me, looking for my support. All I could say was, "It's not your fault, but this puts me in a tough spot." I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, with two clear options in front of me. I could either advise her to turn down the transfer, which meant giving up the promotion she'd worked so hard for, or I could give her my blessing and let her go after the opportunity. I'll admit, my mind wandered to the idea of long-distance marriages. I didn't know many couples who made it work, but surely some did, right? I was still hopeful. I didn't want to stand in the way of her success, so I told her I'd support her decision, no matter what she chose. "We'll make it work," I said. I regret those words now. At the time, I thought I was being a supportive husband, giving her the freedom to chase her dreams. Claire was thrilled. She looked at me like I had just handed her a golden ticket. In that moment, I convinced myself that I had done the right thing. People made long-distance marriages work all the time, right? They spent months away from each other, and somehow the spark stayed alive. Looking back, I see now that Claire didn't really give me room to say no. If I'd been more honest and told her I didn't want her to take the job, she might have considered it. But I knew that if I pushed too hard, it would have created a rift that could threaten our marriage. I didn't want that. I hated the idea of her being so far away, but in that moment, it seemed like the lesser evil was letting her go. Felt like the only logical choice. If I had to make the decision again, I'm not sure I'd do anything differently. Claire spent the evening thanking me for being so understanding, but something inside me felt off. I realized, almost too late, that she had manipulated me into making the decision she wanted. She had subtly baited me. Still, she seemed genuinely excited. I guess it was easy to see why. This was her dream job, her moment to shine. Once the travel arrangements were made, we had a long talk about how to make the marriage work despite the distance. We agreed that we'd talk every day, stay connected in our daily lives. At the time, I didn't think about the possibility of infidelity. I figured Claire was so focused on her career goals that the thought wouldn't even cross her mind. The company even agreed to give her 5 days off each month so she could visit me. She assured me it would work, just before she boarded the plane. I had no idea that, at that moment, my marriage was already slipping away. After we started living apart, I felt like I was actually talking to her more than when we were together. In some twisted way, it made me feel like I had made the right choice, putting her career ahead of my own needs. I thought we were in a good place, or at least I did until about 2 months ago. One morning, Claire called me to cancel her planned trip back to Michigan. She explained that the company had been struggling for the past 3 months, and now she needed to find more qualified people to fill administrative roles. I didn't mind. I was busy myself, on the verge of closing a big deal that would give me the flexibility I needed. The payout from this deal was huge, and it would allow me to spend more time with her, to finally be together again. Waiting just 5 days to surprise her with the news felt like nothing compared to the time we'd have once the deal went through. I didn't tell her about the deal. I wanted it to be a surprise. So, for those 5 days I stayed focused and avoided distractions. We didn't talk much during this time, which felt like the longest stretch we'd gone without meaningful communication. We texted here and there on WhatsApp, but between her work and my deal, neither of us had the time or energy for deep conversations. I'm telling this story because recently, a mutual friend accused me of being cold and manipulative. But in my mind, I wasn't either of those things. The deal was still on track, and everything was about to be finalized. This deal would change everything for us. It was with my first ever client, and it would push me into the top 10% of wealthiest Americans. That night, as I waited for confirmation, I fought the urge to call Claire. I wanted to tell her everything, to share how much our lives were about to change. Instead, I planned a surprise vacation for us, tickets, a hotel, meals, sightseeing. But then, as I was scrolling through WhatsApp, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Claire had posted a photo of her with a man named Robert. He had dark hair, blue eyes, and seemed to be in his mid-30s. He was the first person she hired when she started her job, and it was clear he was close to her. Below the photo, she wrote, "Dark times reveal angels." I should have caught on right then and there. I should have waited to tell her about the deal. But instead, I decided to fly to California to surprise her. That's when everything fell apart. I called her office to find out her location, hoping to surprise her with the news, but a mutual friend who worked there helped keep my arrival a secret. During the flight, I imagined how Claire would react when I told her about the deal. I was excited, but when I arrived at her office, I was told she hadn't shown up for work that day. So, I took an Uber to the address I had for her, wondering why the receptionist had seemed so surprised to learn that Claire was married. Claire was always private about her personal life, so I didn't ask questions. I climbed 4 flights of stairs and stood in front of her apartment, a bouquet of flowers behind my back. Just as I was about to knock, I heard her moaning, followed by a man's voice saying, "Keep going." My heart sank. In just 5.5 months, she had already cheated on me. I was furious. Rage boiled inside me, but I fought to stay calm. I left her apartment quietly and drove back to her office, asking the receptionist to keep my visit a secret. I even gave her a generous tip. Afterward, I stayed in a nearby hotel, planning to watch her every move. Over the next week, I followed her around in a rental car. She didn't suspect a thing. I figured out her routine, work, yoga, and then back to her apartment. It became clear that she was spending a lot of time with Robert. I didn't need to put the pieces together for long. It was obvious who she was involved with. I tried calling and messaging her during this time, but she always had an excuse, something about needing space to figure out her professional life. That's when it clicked. I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I prepared divorce papers. I was done. I waited for her to come home, but I knew she wouldn't be alone. It seemed like she and Robert were inseparable. As soon as I arrived at her apartment, I heard the same sounds, moans and grunts, coming from inside. I couldn't stand it, but I quietly unlocked the door and walked into her bedroom, recording everything with my phone. I felt sick to my stomach, but I knew I had to have proof. I recorded for about a minute before I made my presence known. The look on her face when she saw me was a mixture of panic and disbelief. I felt strangely empowered. As she scrambled for her clothes, I told her I would show the video to her colleagues and family unless she signed the divorce papers. She begged for forgiveness, promising she would resign and seek therapy, but I was done. The betrayal was too much. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. After everything, I couldn't get the image of her with Robert out of my mind. It made me feel physically sick. Her requests for forgiveness and reconciliation were impossible to entertain. She claimed she'd resigned from her job when she dropped off the signed divorce papers. But that wasn't enough. I still sent the video to her parents. I thought they needed to see what kind of person they had raised. From the comments I received, it became clear that Claire had probably been checked out of our marriage long before she took the job. Some people pointed out that she likely wanted this for a while and had probably been cheating for months. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how she had manipulated me into supporting her career move, leaving me with no real choice but to go along with it. Major life decisions like that can change everything, and they did for us. It's been 5 months since the divorce now, and I felt like it was time to update you on everything. Claire moved to another state to oversee her company's new branch and started an affair with her coworker, Robert. I discovered all of this during a surprise visit. After the divorce, I took some time to clear my head and even went on a week-long vacation to the Dominican Republic. By the way, it's an amazing place. One evening, I got a notification about my original post on Reddit. At the time, I was just venting my frustration, anger, and disgust. To my surprise, it gained a lot of attention. As I read through the comments, one stood out. It was from someone who had gone through a similar situation a few years ago. He shared how miserable he felt for not getting the kind of revenge that would truly satisfy his spirit. That struck a chord with me. Many people seemed content with just me exposing Claire's infidelity to her parents and getting her fired from her job. But honestly, it felt like I hadn't done enough. It felt somewhat satisfying to watch her relationship with her parents crumble after they saw the video. But beyond that, what had really changed? Last I heard, she was staying in a motel and working at a nightclub. Ironically, it seemed to suit her, just another cheater with no shame. About 3 weeks after I returned from the Dominican Republic, Claire showed up at my door. She was begging for my forgiveness and to take her back. It was almost entertaining to see her, with puffy, bloodshot eyes, looking like a complete mess. Whatever had happened to her wasn't my concern. She was already an emotional wreck, and I didn't feel sorry for her. My mind wasn't on her at that moment. It was on Robert, the guy she cheated on me with. I let her in, and she immediately started explaining herself, acting like I might reconsider the divorce. She told me she never thought I'd actually go through with it. She even mentioned that she had lost her parents' respect and that I had already punished her enough. I decided to test her. I asked her how many times she had cheated. I knew she'd lie, but I wanted to see how far she would go. She said 1, swearing it was the truth. That answer was impossible to believe. My dad used to say that it was nearly impossible to look someone in the eye and lie to them, but Claire managed to do just that. I didn't know the full extent of her betrayal, but I had a pretty good idea. And it certainly wasn't a one-time mistake. If I hadn't followed her around those first 2 weeks after I arrived in Michigan, or if I hadn't heard her moaning in her room the day I got there, I might have fallen for her lies. Her desire for privacy no longer mattered to me. And as for Robert, when I found out he was a married man, that added fuel to my anger. I knew I had an opportunity to get back at him too. I'm not saying my acting skills were top-notch, but Claire bought it. She thought I was reconsidering the divorce. I told her I needed time to think, then immediately sent the video to everyone who knew her, including her friend at the office. My first move after that was to book a ticket to Michigan to expose Robert's married life. I used the information Claire had given me to track him down, renting an apartment near his place to keep an eye on him. I planned to release the videos of his affair with my ex-wife. Meanwhile, I started watching his wife, Lily. She was stunning, blonde hair, gray eyes, a smile that could light up a room. At first, my plan was to seduce her and rub it in Robert's face. But something unexpected happened. Lily turned out to be kind, genuine, and down-to-earth, and we began to form a real friendship. I even started spending less time focusing on Robert. I found out that he had lost his job and was desperately job hunting to avoid suspicion from Lily. Lily began confiding in me, sharing how her marriage was falling apart. She told me that Robert had barely been paying attention to her, and she was feeling neglected. Unbeknownst to her, This gave me all the ammunition I needed. I showed her the video, the one that had haunted my dreams. It didn't take much to convince her. She was devastated. Together, we planned how she would confront Robert. Though I wasn't there to see it unfold, I knew it was going to be a confrontation she wouldn't forget. I made sure Robert knew that I was the one behind his troubles. Last I heard, he was being deported. As strange as it may sound, I do feel a strange sense of satisfaction. Letters were sent to various people. Family, friends, co-workers, professionals, everyone who had any connection to Lily, Robert's affair partner. I made sure to reach out to as many people as possible. Homemakers, factory workers, doctors, lawyers, educators, preachers, and even people on Facebook. The message they all received was the same. I realize that most of you may not know me, and I appreciate you taking the time to read this. I have some information about my wife, Lily, and her friend, Ethan, which some of you might already know or suspect. I've decided to eliminate any uncertainty and share what I know. I realize many of you may not like this, and some of you may even hate me for it, but I'm prepared to face the consequences of what I'm about to say. Please take a moment to view the first attachment. It's a photo of Lily and Ethan sharing a passionate kiss. The caption reads, "Foreplay." This picture was taken 3 months ago at her company picnic. They thought they were being discreet, but a friend of mine who was looking for his kids at the event saw them and took some pictures. He gave them to me, thinking I might need them. I won't lie, after I saw that, I became the kind of husband I never thought I'd be. Insecure. I needed to know everything, even though I knew it would hurt. And it did. The commitments we made to each other, and to God, were broken because of lust. I keep torturing myself, asking, why? Was it my fault? Was it because I spent so much time away for work? No, I wasn't in the military, and the only SEALs I knew were the ones I saw in the harbor. Maybe it was because I worked too much and neglected her? But no, that wasn't the case either. I don't travel for work, and I'm home by 5:30 every evening. Maybe it was because I abandoned all my hobbies and focused entirely on her and the kids, missing birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries? But again, no. My only hobby was making her happy. I loved surprising her with little gifts, planning weekend getaways, trying to make sure she knew how much I cared. She liked that, kept an eye on me to make sure I didn't go overboard. Turns out none of that mattered. She had all the time in the world to be with Ethan, especially because he was her boss. Their secret meetings were so convenient, right under my nose. The fact that he was her superior made it all too easy for them to meet during the day. I was shocked when I finally got concrete proof of their affair. Cost me a bit, possibly even crossing some legal lines, but I wasn't planning to use it in court. I decided to take this matter to the court of public opinion. The first image was a top-down shot of Lily looking up at Ethan with affection. The caption read, "She's really good at this." The next set of images was even worse. Intimate photos of them in bed, their faces full of desire and satisfaction. Below that was the caption, "What she didn't do for me." I know these photos might be upsetting, but I needed to remove all doubt. Why am I sharing this? Because I filed for divorce. Some of her friends have asked me if I'm sure about this, if it's a mistake, if we should try counseling, or if she's truly sorry. Her mother, whom I've always loved like my own, won't try to convince me to change my mind. Her father, whom I respect but never truly connected with, will likely try to reason with me. But I'm beyond reasoning. I'm sorry I had to involve all of you in this. My biggest wish is for you to leave me alone. This is between me and Lily. Well, not entirely. I owe an apology to Ethan's wife, Olivia. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve to face the reality of what happened, and neither did her 2 young children, who are around 8 and 5. Maybe Ethan will change, maybe Olivia will forgive him. That's up to her. I also owe an apology to Ethan's company and its senior management for dragging them into this. All their meetings took place in the office. I'm sure the supply staff now knows why there's a couch in his office. Just a suggestion. If you plan to let someone else use that couch, make sure it's thoroughly cleaned first. I may not be able to use the photos in court, but my attorney can get statements from their coworkers. I highly doubt the company will want to take responsibility for what happened. In any case, many people will be facing tough times ahead. To sum it up, here's why I chose to handle things this way. I decided to handle things this way to remove all uncertainties and avoid wasting any more time. After all, a picture really is worth 1,000 words. Lily is about to be served with the divorce papers any minute now. I'm ready to start my life without her. Lily, I'm sorry if I couldn't meet your needs. If, from the very beginning, you had been honest about your feelings for someone else and chosen to leave, it would have hurt, but I would have respected your decision. Instead, you decided to have everything, have your cake and eat it too. Well, the cake is gone, Lily. I'm pretty sure you'll regret this, though maybe not. Maybe you're relieved that I found out. So you and your lover can finally live the life you wanted. Whatever the case, it's over between us. I've moved out, taken what I needed, and everything else is yours. From now on, all communication will go through my lawyer. I've made up my mind. I will never speak to you again. I don't want any explanations. I don't want to hear your excuses or anything about second chances. I won't consider them. Go ahead, Lily. Leave me be. The entire office was thrown into chaos when Lily screamed and fainted at her desk after seeing a picture of Ethan with a knife through it. Coworkers rushed to her, and soon, the news spread like wildfire. An email containing all the shocking details had been found by one of the administrators. Work nearly ground to a halt. Ethan, oblivious to the commotion, was caught off guard when the HR director appeared at his door. "Is it true?" the director asked, bluntly, without any preamble. "Is what true?" Ethan replied, confused. The director entered the room, slamming the door behind him. "Is it true that you and Lily have been having an affair here in the office?" Ethan went pale, and the director saw the look on his face. His silence was the answer. "You've been a fool," the director said. "Do you realize the damage you and Lily have caused? A lot of our major clients are religious charities. How do you think they'll react when they find out that 2 of our senior employees were engaged in inappropriate conduct on company property during working hours?" After a long pause, the director continued, his voice heavy. "I've just come from a meeting with senior management. The CEO called and demanded confirmation. He's already received calls from the bishop, the president of a Baptist charity, and Rabbi. Things are not looking good. I want you out of here in 15 minutes. No, make that half an hour. As we speak, Lily is being escorted out of the office. Check your email. I've just received the message her husband sent." Ethan's hands shook as he hit the button to check his email. What started as a casual secret affair had now turned into a full-blown disaster. He had hoped it would stay hidden, just a little secret between them. But the deeper feelings they had developed made it harder to keep their affair a secret, and soon, they had made promises to each other that their spouses would never find out. Suddenly, Ethan realized how much trouble he was in. "Oh my God, Olivia," he muttered, dialing his wife's number in a panic. To his surprise, she answered calmly. Maybe she hadn't seen the email yet. Her voice was cold, emotionless. "Is it true?" she asked. "What's true?" Ethan stammered, knowing he had no choice but to tell the truth. "You have one chance to tell me the truth," Olivia said, her voice sharp. "If you lie, our conversations will be handled by lawyers. So, is it true?" The walls were closing in on him, and he knew he couldn't lie his way out of this. He loved her, but he had no choice. "I'm so sorry, honey." "Yes, it's true," he confessed. Before he could say anything else, Olivia cut him off. "I'm packing 2 suitcases with your favorite things. They'll be in the garage. Come pick them up while I go get the kids from school. I'd come myself, but at least one of us needs to act like a responsible adult here, especially when there are kids involved." There was a long pause. "For now, I'll tell the kids you had to leave for a business trip. Understand one thing. If I decide not to salvage this, you'll be the one explaining to them why their dad doesn't live here anymore. They won't understand now, but they will in a few years. I hope it doesn't drive them away from you. I'm leaving. Please don't try to reach out to me. If I decide to contact you, I'll do it myself." The call ended with a piercing scream from Olivia. "Damn you!" she yelled before hanging up, leaving Ethan staring at his phone, feeling completely lost. For a long moment he couldn't even move. Then his phone rang again. It was Lily. Hesitantly, he answered, and for a minute all he heard was crying and sniffling. Then her voice, barely recognizable through her sobs, came through. Ethan, what are we going to do? You're my life. We were planning to start a family next year. I can't bear to lose you. I can't, Ethan said for the 20th time that day, overwhelmed by a deep sense of sadness. What have we done? He wondered aloud. I feel the same way about Olivia, Lily replied quietly. But honestly, Ethan, I don't see a happy ending for either of us. If we truly loved each other, maybe we'd embrace our freedom and be together. But we liked each other, and that's all. We never intended to end up here. You know, our careers are over, if not now, then soon. Olivia kicked me out, and I'm not sure we'll ever be together again. Ethan sat in silence, guilt and regret crashing over him like waves. I'm genuinely sorry for Daniel, he murmured. Do you think if I talk to him, explain that there was never love, it might help? I'm willing to do that. Lily's response was firm and resolute. No. The best thing you can do right now is stay as far away from us as possible. Every time he sees you, he'll remember what we did. He's never been violent, but I don't know how much more he can take. I'll speak to you again, but only if I think it's a good idea. She paused before adding, No, I don't think it's a good idea. All it would take is for someone to find out that we're talking, and everything we've tried to rebuild will crumble. I'm sorry it came to this. Lily's voice softened. I never meant to hurt you, Ethan. I feel the same way, she sighed. I hope things work out with Olivia. I know how much you love her. I can't believe we were ever so foolish. Goodbye, Ethan. And good luck. She hung up, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. As promised, Daniel never spoke to Lily again. He refused to cooperate, turning down any attempts at negotiations or court-mandated counseling sessions. Instead, he opted to face a contempt charge, showing up at the office to be served with the charge by confused police officers. After taking his statement and determining there was no arrest warrant, the judge expressed skepticism but still sent him to jail over the weekend, releasing him on Sunday nights so he could attend work. Lily eventually canceled the counseling sessions, admitting defeat. The divorce dragged on for nearly a year. Even though Lily still held onto a flicker of hope that Daniel might return, when her mother saw an announcement of his upcoming wedding, she finally gave up. On Daniel's wedding day, Lily, overwhelmed by emotion, got drunk for the first time in 2 years. Time hadn't healed her wounds, but it had made the pain more bearable. She began dating again, entering 2 serious relationships that ended without her ever revealing her past. Eventually, Lily met a man who loved her enough to let the past remain buried. They married and found happiness together. Lily became cautious in her interactions with other men, particularly at work. Her colleagues jokingly referred to her as a nun because she rarely attended social events and kept her conversations with men strictly professional. 2 years after her wedding, she unexpectedly ran into Daniel again. He had left town after reaching a confidential settlement with her former company to avoid a court case. He was back for his sister's 25th wedding anniversary celebration. Lily saw him sitting on a park Daniel by chance. Initially, she wasn't sure it was him. He looked thinner, and some gray hair had appeared. She considered approaching him, maybe finally apologizing for everything, but then a tall woman with fiery red hair approached, holding a boy of about 2 and a girl around 6 or 7. The girl had red curls like her mother's, and the boy had dark curls like Daniel's. The girl leaped into Daniel's lap, and the woman took the younger child in her arms. Daniel stood up, holding the girl in his arms, and kissed the woman. Lily stood frozen, realizing that she was witnessing the life she was supposed to have, a life she would never have now. She wiped away her tears and left, returning home to prepare her husband's favorite dinner. Meanwhile, Ethan and Olivia managed to reconcile after 15 months of separation. Olivia insisted on counseling both individually and as a couple, and they also put in place a rigorous prenuptial agreement. Ethan apologized so much that Olivia eventually lost her patience and warned him that one more apology would be the end of their marriage. Ethan transformed into a completely different person. He rarely left Olivia's side and became a devoted family man. His new job paid less than his previous one, but he received raises and bonuses for his hard work. It took him 6 years to regain his financial footing, while Olivia continued to work to make ends meet. Despite their reconciliation, she refused to give up her job. She occasionally went out with colleagues for drinks or attended quarterly work seminars, and her independence bothered Ethan. But secretly, he admired it. Their life was different from the past, but they were committed to building a better future for themselves and their children. One day, as Ethan reflected on the past, he realized that the time he had spent with Lily, in bed, had amounted to about 12 encounters, with each lasting between 30 and 45 minutes. In total, it was around 9 hours of physical connection. When he compared that to the years of suffering and devastation caused by his and Lily's actions, he asked himself if it was worth it. The answer was clear: absolutely not.